Hey peeps, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do a DIY, this simple wooden plank with some hooks for your storage, either for your keys or for your coats. So to start off, we're going to use a trash bag just so we could protect the surface. I would highly recommend that you do it outside so that you don't spray those fumes out in the house. So the thing that I'm actually going to use is this wooden stain, and it's actually in color white. I like the stain because it doesn't color like the paint. It actually kind of goes on as a see-through coat. So I'm putting on the first coat, but you really can kind of apply as many coats as you want to. I'm only going to apply about 2 or 3 because I still want the wood to kind of peep through. So not fully solid white, but if you do want a solid white layer, I would definitely recommend that you do paint. I just like the wooden stain because it really soaks into the wood and it dries a lot quicker. That's in my opinion. So I am going to go and paint the first side and then both of the sides, wait for it to dry, flip over, and paint the back side as well. So the second step that you want to take is once it dries, which I let my board dry overnight, just so it really dries, and once I apply the tape, nothing peels off, especially if you use regular paint. So I'm just using some blue tape, and I'm actually just going to kind of apply the tape in different directions, and I am going to apply it in such a way where the corners are covered as well, because I'm going to spray paint the whole board, and I still want the design to show off on the sides, just because when you hang the plank you'll still see the design. So I didn't want it to be like full white. Plus, if you did want to protect it, you would either have to put the tape all the way around the corners, or you would see, spray paint all over the sides, but it would not look that pretty. So make sure that your tape actually goes over on both of the edges. But I'm just being creative, I'm just kind of applying it in different directions, making sure that you have straight lines throughout the board, and just applying it in funky ways, just so that we can kind of see like these geometric shapes. So you really can be as creative as you want. You don't have to apply that many pieces as I applied. You can only do a few if you want to. I just kind of thought that the more I applied, the more geometric shapes I would see, the more the paint would stand out. So that's kind of what I did for mine. And I did apply some tape, in between as well, just making sure that the lines were absolutely straight, and then I smoothed out the tape down so when I do spray paint, none of that spray paint actually goes on the white. So I'm going back outside, applying the board back on to those little 2 wooden planks. That way it's kind of elevated. I'm using this beautiful rose gold, and it's a metallic spray paint, and what's cool about it is it kind of has this little shimmer, and so it actually dries a lot quicker because it has like this little grainy feel to it once it dries. So it almost kind of has like sparkles, but not really, just because it is metallic. So you can use, whatever paint that you want to match your theme of the house. I'm using white and rose gold because I have a lot of golds in the house. I have a lot of whites in my house, and I kind of wanted that piece to really stand out, so I kind of selected these colors. Honestly, this is something that I've had in my house, so I really didn't have to spend any money. I had the extra plank, I had the spray paint, I had the tape already from previous projects, so really it didn't cost me nothing to do this plank. And these shelves can range, anywhere from $30 to $60 depending on what kind you want. So it's kind of a simple way to do this DIY at home and, save some money and actually create a little bit more of storage for that space, making sure that your coats and your keys are not lost and you can actually use it to hang those things. Plus, the board, I'm placing it in an area where it's kind of more of a guest room, so it's definitely a good place for your guests to kind of put their coats, their sweaters, or their keys, just so they don't misplace them. So I'm making sure that I spray it really nicely on the sides. Just make sure you don't really tilt the can too far, because we really don't want the back to be painted. Even though you can't really see the back, you still want to make sure it looks nice and tidy. So once I'm done with spray painting this, I'm just going to leave it to dry, and honestly it's going to do it really quickly, especially if you do it outside and it's kind of sunny. Just make sure it's not too hot, because spray paints, depending on what kind you use, can bubble up if you leave it in a really humid or hot weather. This one particularly does not really bubble up, so it kind of works really well. And I've actually touched it after I just spray painted, and I already feel that it's almost dry, but I'm still gonna let it do its thing before I actually start taking off the tape. So the next thing you want to do is make sure that you peel off the tape very slowly, and making sure that you kind of peel it in the same direction, and make sure that you're not really, trying to strip everything off, because depending on what kind of paint you use, if you've used regular paint instead of the stain, a lot of times it can peel. So just make sure that you peel it in the direction that you've actually applied it with, and make sure you kind of do these pieces in order. That way you don't mess any of that up. But if you do mess it up, you can definitely use a really fine brush and just dip it into the paint that has messed up and just fix it. But it peels off really nicely if you use the stain on the board and then you use like a really nice metallic spray paint, just like mine. It came off really well, and I really didn't have any issues. So I really like the color, and you can actually kind of see the glare. You won't really see how pretty it actually looks until it's on the wall. It's just right by my window, and so it kind of gives it a glare. But just make sure that you peel it off nicely and in the same direction, and making sure that you peel it in such a way where you don't strip off the paint that you've applied. And then I already measured out on my board, depending on what size you have. Just make sure that you have the holes that you create are equally in proportion. So I just used permanent marker, and I measured out 6 or 5. It was 5 holes, so it kind of went in a W. So I measured out, depending, on the size of your board. You want to make sure that you apply a certain amount of knobs and make sure that they're actually equal. So I'm just using a drill to drill holes before I actually apply the knobs that I want, or the hooks, whatever you decide to apply. And again, elevating them on those little 2 pieces that I have is really good for you to drill and also paint, just because it kind of gives you a space in between. I also had this hardware from an old frame that I wasn't using, so I just took it off and put it on top of this one. But you can definitely purchase those. They're like $2 to $3 at either Walmart or Lowe's, wherever you're going to shop. You can definitely use that, but I'm just reusing what I have and just apply them at the very top, and that's pretty much it as far as the board. Now it's time for me to apply the knobs. I found these at the shop called At Home. It used to be called Garden Ridge for some of you, but I really like these because they were gold, and so it kind of played it off really nicely off of the rose gold. You can also be very creative, and then you can actually go to Hobby Lobby, and they have very different knobs that you can buy individually. But this is what it looks like hung. So I put it right where my picture frames are, actually with the saying, and I have a really nice bench there, and actually painted it gray. But super easy, super quick to revamp your space and give it a little bit more of storage for your coats and your keys. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so. But as always, create culture and be you, and I will see you guys next time in my next video. Bye bye.